Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Inside the Lines. Of course, a lot to go over today. A lot of basketball today. We'll talk about that in-season tournament a little bit, just some NBA picks overall. A lot of college basketball today for Jake to dive into, and some NFL Week 13 line updates, just showing you guys where that steam is going in case you like a team, know if it's time to act now or not. Before we get started, I got to shout out Big Cheesy, who, you know what, went against us, took the Kings money line last night, boots on ground. So congrats to him on that. But Steven, are we a little frustrated with that pick right now?
No, I'm Big Cheesy's going to send some money to us, and me specifically. I'll give you my Venmo, because obviously I spoke that one point went into existence when I said teams never lose by one. So, but one good thing for Sportsline subscribers, the line moved to 2 on the consensus. And so our model actually had an 8 pick on the spread, because when you have 2 points, that's a little more wiggle room. So I like to go to the spread at that point. But anyway, that's enough of that.
Yeah, enough of that. We move on. We keep going. Let's talk a little bit about this in-season tournament. Steven put some numbers together for us. Now, if you are like me and really haven't been paying attention too much to it now, this is a good time to get into it, because now we're down to 8 teams, more of a traditional tournament style play here. We're looking at a lot of questions that could be had, so please ask your questions about any of these teams in general, but a few value spots that we found, Steven.
Yeah, this is tough for me because I was actually kind of surprised by the motivation and how much players did seem to care about this. So the one thing out of the East, we have value on New York. But that's because in New York, in the regular season, they've been accumulating very good stats on the road this year and at home, almost equivalent. And it's in those hustle stats, rebounding differential, turnover margin, and with Thibodeau kind of preaching that. And the problem is, and then regular season Milwaukee, they're focusing on things like health and chemistry with Dame and all those things. So in the model, since it's still being treated as a regular season game to a degree, we find New York having a better chance than most would think at Milwaukee, and doing better in the neutral setting because their road stats are just as good as their home stats. And we use a blend of both, for round 2 and the semifinals and finals. So that's why there's a model value in New York. If you think that Boston, Milwaukee, and obviously the West are going to play as hard as possible and treat this like a real postseason tournament, then the value would go away. What do you think, Jake? You think?
Yeah, sorry, I was in the chat.
But
you think that edge that the Knicks have in regular season with Thibodeau and defensive hustle?
I think, I mean, right now they have an edge before Thibodeau drives them all into the ground by the end of the season.
And then so another interesting thing in the East is Boston. We actually agree. So these are the percentages that these teams win in the Vegas games if they get there. So you see that we have Boston as winning 63% of the time against whoever is in the West if Boston gets there. So we see Boston as a much better team, even without Porzingis. But because they're the wild card seed and actually going on the road to Indiana, they're actually barely 50% favorites in that first round. So we don't have any value on Boston at plus 300. If Boston was a 1 seed and healthy, then we'd probably have them at around 33%.
Yeah, probably more. We love Kristaps.
Yes, yeah, we do. But in the West, I don't know what to make of it. The Lakers, they've between some dominating performances in the in-season tournament, they got LeBron's worst loss in his career the other day. So the model's kind of confused by what type of team this is. And the last time the Lakers were in a neutral setting, in the bubble, they won the championship when they don't have to travel anywhere and all that. So again, sorry, folks, this is new to me. I don't know what to deal with this. So in the end, we do give the Lakers a pretty good chance, but not at plus 550.
It's interesting that New Orleans is the only team with value, but CJ
and that's the CJ McCollum's coming back. Yeah, so they're doing well there, and the same reason we faded Sacramento last night against Golden State, that 3-point differential that was actually accurate, is coming to play here with McCollum back. That there's some value probably against the spread when those lines come out.
Yeah, things get a little difficult for us when we have to start considering teams trying really hard in November and early December. So that's something we're learning as we go to see the Lakers 4-0 right now in group play. Derek said the Pacers also 4-0 in group play right now, 5-7 in other games. Lakers also below 500 in their other games. So you can only do so much right now. I guess we'll have to get some more data before.
You can't even tell how these players do in a one and done like NCAA tournament style because none of them play in the NCAA tournament. They all skip.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to some games that we do have model value in here. We'll start with an over 230 for the Clippers headed to Sacramento tonight. A lot of theories that Sacramento will be tired from such a tough, long win, but we think otherwise here.
Yeah, well, I do think they're going to be tired and have a letdown, and that hopefully will manifest itself in a higher scoring, in a worse defensive effort. So the reason why, the Clippers, their average road total is 227, plus 14 higher than at home. And the Kings' home average total is 239, and they allow plus 4 more at home. So I'm hoping that both the Clippers and the Lakers, we don't have any value on the spread in this game, score more than the team totals to shoot this game over. And I think the line is steaming a little bit high, so you might want to move now. Okay.
Sorry, Big Cheesy distracted me with this comment here we were just talking about earlier. Does Rodgers make a comeback this season? The answer to that question would be no.
I don't think so. I think this is all just a bunch of hullabaloo for him to stay in the news.
Yeah, no one loves having people talk more about Aaron Rodgers than Aaron Rodgers.
And maybe if he come back and go down on history as some, miracle worker,
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jesus.
Yeah. We'll see. All right, let's move on here. Nuggets, this is steamed to 7, I believe now, but we still like it here. Nuggets minus the 7 versus Houston at home. Do you guys hear this dog barking behind me? Disregard, but please tell us about your pick.
Well, it's going up to 7.5 in a lot of spaces. So the reason why the line's as tight as it is because, well, Houston did beat Denver twice recently at Houston, and one game was a blowout. So I actually think that works in Denver's favor in terms of the revenge factor. But mostly it's Jokic, Aaron Gordon, and Jamal Murray are listed as game time decisions. So I think that if 2 of the 3, obviously if Jokic and one of the other 2 are both good to go, I think this line shoots to 10 or 11. So I'm banking on at least Jokic being ready, and then the revenge factor. Houston just played last night. They had a nice stretch where they're down early against Dallas, had a decent lead against Dallas, and then lost it late. So I think that they're young but still traveling and played last night. So I like Denver in this spot at home. Houston is a bad road team. They're just point differential this year is -9. I think Denver's obviously dominant at home, +11 at home, 8-0 straight up. So if this line, I would get 7 like Can. It was 6.5 a couple hours ago.
Okay. Good stuff there. Let's head over to the Phoenix game, headed to Toronto. Jake has a player prop here. Let's talk about this here. Points and rebounds.
Yeah, so this line moved to 20.5 in a lot of places, but BetMGM had it at -125, when some books had it -130 at over 20.5. And Nurkic has dominated Pirtle in his career. He's hit, I know I'm on his over 10.5 points. He's hit that in 6 of 7 games against Pirtle. So I like this matchup for Nurkic. We have him at 20. Okay. I think 21 points and rebounds.
Mm-hmm. Let's move over to one more player prop on the night here, going to Desmond Bane for Memphis, over 29.5 points and assists.
Yeah, Bane just dropped 37 in his last game against Utah. That's another favorable matchup. I used the odds jam board for this pick. We had very favorable odds on Bane. A lot of places it's moved to 30.5. But ESPN bet you get it at -110, 29.5. I like this matchup.
Hey, Jake, can you check that odds jam board? Because I liked Keontae George under 25.5 points, rebounds, and assists. His line's high because the last 3 games with Markkanen out twice and Clarkson out once, he's had 27, 26, and 26. But he's shooting over 40% from 3 in that time. He's been taking a ton of threes all season, but he wasn't that high percentage of shooter, in college. And then he started really cold this season. So I'm expecting him to fall back into that 33% zone and come in under, even though Markkanen's still out.
So
Put money
on
on
Watch Jam, you get under 25.5 in some books at BetMGM, it's -120. Bet Rivers -114. The major books, Bet Rivers -114 is probably the best.
Fantasy optimizers say it's a good value at all.
Let's see.
I don't know. We can move forward if we need to run out of time. Rather than
I got it.
All right. We're here to answer questions. Your questions.
I like using Jake as a performing monkey for me. Like, dance, do this. Who's this player? What's this guy go to college? What was his rating coming out of?
I can tell you everyone going to college pretty much.
Yeah.
So I just find it entertaining. You know, like my sports statistics court jester.
Yes.
So Keontae George, the fantasy optimizer for Prize Picks, says that there's a 52% chance that the under hits.
There you go.
So
consensus.
Yeah.
So,
Pinnacle, the under 25.5 is at -152. So if you get a Prize Picks in a 6-man flex, it's equivalent of -119 odds. You're getting some good value there.
Cool.
Too bad Steven's been kicked out of Prize Picks in just about every book in America.
It's not kicked out. They won't even let me register.
Yeah, that sounds like a you problem. You're gonna have to figure that one out. We're gonna move on to
you have to use your wife's name and account to make an account. Yeah.
Then I have to explain to her what I do for a living. She did have to pick that up.
That's a lot of moving parts we can't get into. All right, with that, I'm kicking you to the chat. Me and Jake are going to talk some college basketball here. A lot of games today. We'll start with a parlay we have here. Tell us about this.
Yeah, I think there's 73 or 74 Division I games, so there's a lot to bet on today. This one I'm going. We were successful earlier in the year with these alt line parlays and money line parlays. I like Duquesne money line here. They're going against a good UC Irvine team, but UC Irvine last year, they weren't great on the road. Duquesne's much better at home. I mean, they hurt us when we bet against them earlier in the season, so now we're going to just have to bet on them. And then San Jose State alt line -5.5. The spread's at 10.5 now in most books, but if you knock it down to 5.5, we have them winning by 17. So I like parlaying two teams together that make the odds around even, and this is one with plenty of value.
This next one made me laugh. If this isn't our show in a nutshell, and Jake in a nutshell, Gardner Webb versus Queens College going under 148.5. What conference is this?
Gardner Webb, what conference? I know the Gators played them a couple years ago, and I had a buddy from college who a high school teammate played for Gardner Webb, so I took him to one of the games when the Gators played them. Nate Johnson's his name. Let's see. Gardner Webb's in North Carolina, so I'm assuming they're Eastern time zone. I think Gardner Webb's in North Carolina. Queens College, they're new to Division I. I have no idea what conference they are. And so, but this is one where if you look at their averages, Gardner Webb averages like 65 points per game. Queens College averages 71. And if you combine those, it's like around 137. We have this at 134 in our model. Most places it's gone down to 146.5, but you still get a Caesars at 148.5. That's 2 points of value you're getting right there on Caesars. And it's at -110. So yeah, games at home were high for Queens College, but I think that Gardner Webb's offensive pace is gonna slow them down. So if you look at the points combo, I like the under, just because that both teams don't average that much. Their defenses haven't been great. I'm betting on their offenses not being that great. Yeah, Gardner Webb is in the Big South.
Yes, thank you, Derek, for that. All right, small schools, that's where the value is. That's what we're here to give you guys. Let's move to a school we do know, though, a player prop here for Ohio State. They're hosting Central Michigan as 24-point favorites.
Yeah, so this is one of Derek's teams, Ohio State. Zed Key's gone over this in all but one game this season. We have him at 11 points in our model. I like this matchup against a not very good Central Michigan team. The only problem is, since it's a 24.5 point spread, that he might not play a ton in the second half. So hopefully he gets this early in the game.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to another player prop, Wake Forest, Andrew Carr under 8.5 rebounds here.
Yeah, the Gators, one thing that they did in the offseason is they built their team based on rebounding because they got out rebounded a ton last year. They added Micah Handlogton from Marshall, who was one of the best offensive rebounders in the country last season, and they added Tyree Samuel from Seton Hall. But we have Andrew Carr playing 30 minutes and getting just 6 rebounds. Wake's not a great rebounding team. The Gators have been a really good rebounding team this year. So I like this a lot. This is similar to the Arthur Kaluma play yesterday where we had him under 9. It got very scary because he was at 8 going into overtime, and luckily he didn't have a board in overtime. He had 6 in the first half, so that was a big sweat if you were on that with me yesterday.
Gross. Yeah. Big 2 in one day for Jake. Let's try to do that again. Let's go to Northern Iowa. They're hosting Belmont today, 8.5-point favorites.
Yeah, Nate Heisey. I like this play. He's gone over in 4 of 6 games this season. And if you look at this game, the total is at 156.5, so they're expecting a lot of points. We have them projected for 12.4, I think. So you're just getting good value in the game where there's expected to be a ton of points.
Mm-hmm. All right. That is all we have for college basketball right now. I'm going to send Jake back into the chat to answer those questions. Some questions in the chat about props in general. We will certainly, after NFL season, be doing a lot more NBA deep diving, but any specific questions you can get to us in the chat. We are happy to answer them with the model. All right, Steven, let's head into some NFL. We talked about some early line movement. There's still some line movement going on. This isn't necessarily us saying to hammer certain plays. We're just saying if you've been thinking about taking certain spreads, here are the updates. Here's where the steam's going. And we want to make sure you guys are all aware of that. So we'll start with Seattle going to Dallas. Dallas, there's already steam going to them, moved to 8.5, but we're seeing it move closer to 9 here.
Yeah, I see 9 in half the books. So we probably want to get there before it goes to 9.5 or even 10. Because 9's a pretty critical number. So get 8.5 now. The model has it at 10.
Right. Another game, Miami. I mean, this has already steamed a lot too. They opened up in the look ahead of 6.5-point favorites, already at 9. This is moving to 10. I'm assuming we've lost all model value.
It's at 9.5 now, pretty much everywhere. You can still get 9 in one major book. And yeah, there's also the Hard Knocks boost. You know, people are watching, people will start liking a team more from watching the show, and you know that could hurt line value there.
Definitely. Let's move over to Arizona going to Pittsburgh. Line opened up at Pitt -6. We saw some movement to 5, now coming back to 6. So I guess not necessarily an act now. This just depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, but you know, I do think that our model has really strong value on Pittsburgh because of, we mentioned earlier in the week, the turnover margin that they're expected to have, that they do have at home, especially, and Pittsburgh's offense running the ball really effectively these days.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think a lot of models, other people who use stats, will pick up on those same factors. So I'm surprised to see that this line hasn't moved to 6.5. But I think it still could. So I would treat, if I can get 5, if you can get 5 anywhere, I would grab that, because I do think this is going to move when models coalesce around ours.
Right. Let's move to, this was an interesting game to begin with. Indianapolis going to Tennessee. Indianapolis was favored, now moving towards Tennessee with the Jonathan Taylor news. We always like Tennessee in this spot. So this is definitely, if you can get them at plus money, you certainly want to get that money line right now, right?
Yeah, I think so. We mentioned that Tennessee is like, I know the eye test is not good, but the actual statistics at home have been excellent in terms of win-loss, point differential, and all those. And the Colts, you know, I think are a little overrated. They've racked up some good offensive performances at home, hasn't translated to road. Their defense made big plays against Tampa, but isn't great. They were allowing a ton of points at home. But I do think that if you like the Colts, I wouldn't worry about Jonathan Taylor's injury in the short term. You know, obviously long term it would hurt if he wasn't available, but you know they were running the ball very effectively, if not better, actually, before in the stretch and the start of the season when he was out.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move over to Detroit going to the Saints. There's been steam on them basically all week, now starting to move to 4.5. What was the model value here?
Well, we're waiting on the wide receivers for the Saints. So this indicates to me that there's some real concerns about Olave's concussion and Shaheed, because I think this is, if they were healthy and ready to go, I think it wouldn't have moved beyond 3.
Mm-hmm. Another big game with a lot of movement. The Chargers look ahead was around 4.5, steamed to 6. Slight chance it starts to go to 6.5. Probably not going back down to 5.5. So if you do like the Chargers in this spot, you probably want to get it before that 6.5 here.
Yeah, you can still get 5.5 and 1. It looks like Fanatics says 5.5 at -110, which is probably one you want to pounce on. This is obviously everyone's just the Patriots are a mess. The Chargers are a mess in win-loss, but not in certain key metrics. You know, and they came close to beating Baltimore despite 4 turnovers that they aren't expected to happen again.
Let's move to the big game of the week. San Francisco going to Philly. Open as 2-point favorites. Some steam to 2.5. You really want to get this is definitely an act now situation. If you like the Niners, get them before that key number.
And then it's at I see 3, pretty much half the books. So this is really surprising. You know, obviously that a team as good as Philadelphia, 10-1 at home would be insultingly a pretty solid dog. You know, that to anybody, but just shows how good people's perception of San Francisco is. And you know, we just ran some numbers for our social team talking about our playoff forecast if the current seedings were set. And yeah, we do have we agree that San Francisco is the best team, and they have unfortunately they are beating my Ravens. I was
going to say, yeah, that same simulation that Steven ran also had his Ravens in the Super Bowl.
Hey, I picked us to lose to San Francisco 10. You know,
that was brave.
2013 too, and so that's fine.
We're so
no, it's a huge thing. The big thing is the 1 seed, right? So you know the Ravens have that 1 seed right now. Technically, I think it's going to be very hard for the Ravens to keep that 1 seed. So that's why, you know, yeah, they could cruise if they not cruise, but they are favorites if they can retain that 1 seed.
Let's move to Kansas City, not getting that much love, going to the Packers. Open as 7-point favorites. We've seen it creep down to 6 so far. It doesn't seem like we're going to come out of the weeds here with the steam going to the Packers.
Yeah, so we had a lot of model value on the Packers because we only had them as 3.5-point dogs, and Fanatics just moved to 5.5. So if you like Green Bay, you probably want to get 6 while you can. If you like Kansas City, I would wait to probably get maybe 5. You know, the Jordan Love quote unquote turnaround, and maybe people will be saying they're not fully convinced that Kansas City is completely right after just, you know, having 2.5 quarters of good offense. You know, so that's what I'm speculating.
Let's move to one more game here. The Bengals headed to Jacksonville. If you do like Jacksonville, about half these books are at 8.5, so you probably want to grab 8 while you can.
And 9 is you can still get 8 at looks like $1. I'm not quite sure which one it is.
Shout out,
but you can get 9. There's also 9 at the win, so this could be going to the dreaded 9, 10 key numbers. So if you like Jacksonville, grab it at 8.
Okay, so a few act now situations for certain backers for week 13. I want to answer a fantasy question quick from Dwayne asking about starting Moss over Pollard or Kamara this week in season long fantasy.
See, in what fantasy?
Season long fantasy.
Week? Oh, just like what, you know,
yeah.
Okay. I'm not quite sure. So Pollard. We got Pollard at 14 in this is PPR in 12. Zach Moss, we have him only at 23rd, even though he's going to have a big increase in workload. Tennessee does have a really good run defense. They allow like 3.6 or 3.7 yards per carry at home. So that's why the Fantasy Football Today experts are way higher on Moss than we are. And Kamara, we have Kamara at 2, and he's 4. He's the best by far in the Fantasy Football Today expert poll. So yeah, I would take Kamara in this scenario.
Okay, I'll get one more question before we head out here. I know Kevin been getting some help in the chat, but let's answer this one with the model here. If we have more value on LeBron's points or AD's points or either or none.
All right, so it looks like they have the same points, rebounds, and assist number. So if you're looking points specifically, let me see if I can just pop it up. The line I'm seeing is 32.5 for LeBron, and we have him at 29. And no, that's points rebounds. Sorry, total points we have 24.5 for LeBron, as a consensus line, and we're projecting 22.7. Anthony Davis, there's a 23.5 line, and we're projecting 20.8. So we like the value. We like the value on LeBron in this case.
We're all about the value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think LeBron coming off a rough game, in his worst loss will be out for blood.
Yeah.
Or he just won't care at all because it's not an in-season tournament.
Yeah, who knows how this is all going to go. Hopefully we got to all of your questions. If not, please feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. We'll get to some tomorrow too. Tomorrow we have some Thursday night football to preview, some more college football stuff to go over, lots of updates in general, maybe some injury stuff. Who knows what happens after tonight. All right, so
and
again, any more questions?
We'll drink out for our lost survivor. Our survivor streak ended because we had to pivot off Cincinnati to the Borough, and Minnesota couldn't hold onto the lead.
This show is not dedicated to Joe Burrow, but it is dedicated to our survivor pool that is now dead because of him. So with that, I digress. Good luck with your bets tonight. Reach out to us on Twitter if you need any help on questions, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.